Gender discrimination. Gender as a term refers to the differentiation or varying attitudes between persons on the basis of their sex. There are two kinds of differences between men and women, that is, sex and gender. Sex signifies the physical and biological differences between females and males, which is a natural phenomenon. On the other hand, gender refers to the socially constructed differences between men and women. These ideas further give way to the exploitation and discrimination against women. Discrimination is associated with prejudice and regarded as objectionable. It may entail behavior either to benefit an individual or harm the individual concerned. Gender discrimination refers to a belief in relation to gender of a person which may or may not carry legal consequences but is of social nature. When we talk of gender discrimination, we talk about patriarchy, which is a system of social structures and practices in which men dominate, oppress, and exploit women. It manifests itself in preference for a son, discrimination against daughter in food distribution, burden of household work, lack of opportunities for girls, lack of educational opportunities, restricted mobility, acts of domestic violence, lack of inheritance to women. Foot binding in China, sati system, dowry system, ill treatment of widows, and child marriage in India are manifestations of patriarchy. The dichotomous nature of gender leads to the creation of inequality that manifests itself in numerous dimensions of daily life. Also, when distinctions are made between males and females and differential treatment is given out to boys and girls, then there is gender inequality. Social aspects of unpacking gender role. Gender role. Gender roles develop through internalization and identification during childhood. This internalization of gender norms can be seen through the example like which types of toys children are typically given, while feminine toys are often reinforce interaction, nurturing, and closeness. The masculine toys reinforce independence and competitiveness. Education also plays an integral role in the creation of gender norm. Gender discrimination in school. Gender discrimination is an unhealthy social development. It causes damage to the society in many ways. We see discrimination in almost every walk of life. In the schools that are an integral part of a healthy society, there prevails gender discrimination as well, but of a different kind. What we need to do is to provide equal opportunity to all the school children, whether a boy or a girl. Inequalities prevailing in the field of education and at times at the school level are as follows. The girl child is very often not allowed to continue her education, especially in the rural areas, even by the parents. Some people do not favor sending their girl child to school even up to primary level. This situation is disturbing among the tribals, minority communities, and the other socially and economically weaker sections of the society. There is an alarming dropout rate of girls in the schools in primary education. The girls' dropout rate is about 30% more in comparison to the boys. The girls are at the core of our social structure. They need to be nurtured, cared, and educated properly. Their upliftment is essential to the well being of every society. Neglecting girl child simply means destroying the possibility of a mentally strong, sensitive, and socially responsible individual. We should not forget that by providing proper education to the girls, we are building a healthy society for future generations. We can begin by encouraging education to the girl child at the school level. It is important to infuse the sense of gender equality at the elementary level. At school, we can establish gender equality by following means. The girl must feel equally safe as it is for the boys. The children, whether a boy or a girl, should be equally encouraged to participate in the extracurricular activities. They should be equally respected, cared for, and valued. The girl child should be given fair and unbiased treatment with a view to encourage them and raise their confidence. In this way, we can ensure better opportunities to the girls, creating a path to a healthy society. The schools can play an effective role in establishing gender equality by guiding the tender minds with new ideas and sense of social responsibility. The reinforcement of male dominance. Male dominance is both a socializing and structural force. It exists at all levels of society, from the interpersonal interaction of women and men to the patterning of gender that is found in all cultural and social institutions. Language is one such form that perpetuates male dominance by ignoring women. Use of the pronoun he when the sex of the person is unspecified and of the generic term mankind to refer to humanity in general are obvious examples of how women is neglected in the popular languages spoken in different parts of the world. Gendered media. The media plays up traditional traits of men and women. Boys and men are often portrayed as active and aggressive persons, while women are portrayed as quiet, submissive, and pretty. Women are typically hired to cover topics like weather, culture, etc. Women are objectified in films and daily soaps to attract viewers. Economic aspect of gender bias. In the workplace, wage discrimination is the discrepancy of wages between two groups due to the bias towards or against a specific trade, with all other characteristics of both groups being equivalent. The gender income disparity can also be attributed in part to occupational segregation, where groups of people are distributed across occupation according to gender. Men and women possess different physical, emotional, and mental capabilities. These different capabilities make them comparatively better suited for certain jobs, while some occupations have become more gender integrated. Male carriers, bus drivers, and real estate agents. Occupations including teachers, nurses, secretaries, and librarians have become female dominated. Occupations including architects, electrical engineers, and aeroplane pilots remain predominantly male in composition. In short, it would be wrong to say that gender inequality has many terms and it still exists in the different spheres of our social life. Glass ceiling. The term glass ceiling refers to situations where the advancement of a qualified person within the hierarchy of an organization is deliberately stopped at a lower level because of some form of discrimination, most commonly based on sex or racism. This situation is referred to as a ceiling as there is a limitation blocking upward advancement, and glass transparent because the limitation is not immediately apparent and is normally an unwritten and unofficial policy. The term glass ceiling has been thought to have first been used to refer to invisible barriers that create obstacles in the career advancement of women in the workforce of developed countries. The term glass ceiling was originally specifically applied to discrimination against women. Types of glass ceiling barriers. Number 1, different pay for comparable work. Number 2, sexual, ethnic, racial, religious discrimination or harassment at the workplace. Number 3, lack of family friendly workplace policies. Effects of glass ceiling. One of the major indicators that serves to demonstrate that inequality between males and females is the gender wage gap. Some explanations offered to explain this gender gap center around education. Women were believed to have low earning power as compared to males 2 decades ago because women were just entering the paid labor force and therefore possessed less skill and education than most men. However, within female dominated fields, that is education, the glass ceiling is still present. Women often have great difficulty acquiring managerial positions even in overwhelmingly women oriented fields. Therefore, this phenomenon extends into all fields. Although differences existing between men and women who are climbing the ladder are downplayed, this is true. Unfortunately, the gendered inequalities are often embedded within the social hierarchy, and this reflects how women and men are perceived in leadership roles. Possessing expertise is not viewed as positively as it is for males. This also suggests that lack of skills is not the only reason why women are not deemed worthy of leadership roles. Overall, the system is designed to cap the amount of promotions and knowledge women gain in comparison to males. However, performance ratings were more strongly connected to promotions for women than men. This suggests that women had to be highly impressive to be considered eligible for leadership roles, whereas this was not the case for men. Women are more likely to choose jobs based on factors other than pay, for instance, healthcare and scheduling that can be managed with the duties of primary care of children, for which women are still largely responsible, and thus they may be less likely to take jobs that require travel or relocation or jobs that are hazardous. On an average, women take more time off and work fewer hours, often due to unequal distribution of childcare, labor, domestic labor, medical needs specific to women, and other family issues that tend to fall to a women's responsibility as per the gender roles assigned by society. Reverse glass ceiling. A new phenomenon known as the reverse glass ceiling has been taking shape in the developed regions of the world in the past few years. More and more men have now started their careers in female dominated industries such as nursing, paralegal, travel, and childcare. Many have been discriminated against because of this. Some experts question whether it actually exists because it is still infantile in growth. Some others call this concept the glass escalator and describe it as the rapid advancement of men into positions of authority within female dominated occupations. These differences or gender inequalities are biological, which have been used to justify roles allotted. Such unfair and discrimination follows gender stereotyping held by society. Gender equality, the constitutional provisions. Number 1, the Constitution of India provides for gender equality in its preamble as a fundamental right. It also empowers the state to adopt measures of positive discrimination in favor of women by way of legislation and policies. Number 2, India has also ratified various international conventions and human rights to secure equal rights for women, such as ratification of Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women in 1993. Women have been finding a place in local governance structures overcoming gender bias. Number 3, the passing of Prenatal Diagnostic Test Act in 1994 also is a step in removing gender discrimination. This act seeks to end sex determination tests and female feticide and prohibits doctors from conducting such procedures for the specific purpose of determining the sex of the fetus. Number 4, the government also announced the National Policy for Empowerment of Women in 2001 to bring about the advancement, development, and empowerment of women. Number 5, the government has also drawn up a draft of national policy for the empowerment of women, which is a policy statement outlining the state's response to problems of gender discrimination. A girl child is vulnerable to human rights violations and requires additional protection. A girl child or woman is often subjected to abuse and violence or being discriminated against on the ground of disability, caste, or social origin. They face discrimination at home and school. They are most vulnerable when familial, social, or community structure collapses and they are deprived of parental care or familial support, as in the case of humanitarian emergencies or armed conflicts. Low value placed on girls subjects them to exclusion, exploitation, and violence. They are particularly exposed to social, psychological, physical, mental, emotional, and material risks and other harm, including neglect. Besides being denied their fundamental right to education, access to medical care, services, and information to involve in their communities, the girl child is denied most basic rights such as the right to name, right to be born, that is female feticide, and girl infanticide. Women's movement. The women's movement in India is a rich and vibrant movement taking different forms in different parts of the country over the centuries. India is a country of contradictions. At the heart of these contradictions are Indian women. For a while, it is true to that they are among the most liberated, the most articulate, and perhaps in the world most free. At the same time, it is equally true that some of them lead a very miserable life of utter disrespect and exploitation of various types. During last 5 years that India had a women president, the country saw increasing incidents of violence and discrimination against women. A casual visitor to any Indian city, for example Mumbai, will see hundreds of women, young and old, working in all kinds of professions: doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers, scientists. Yet, newspapers in India are full of stories of violent incidents against women, such as rape, eve teasing, sexual harassment, and sometimes even murder. To have a woman in the highest office of the state and simultaneously encounter extreme violence against women are merely the two ends of the scale. One of the first issues to receive countrywide attention from women's groups was violence against women, especially in the form of rape, acid attacks, and what came to be known in India as dowry deaths, the killing of young married women for dowry brought by them at the time of marriage. This was also the beginning of a process of learning for women. Most protests were directed at the state level because women were able to mobilize support. The state's response seemed to be positive, as seen changing of the law on rape and dowry, making both more stringent. Perhaps the most significant development for women in the last few decades has been the introduction of 33% reservation for them in local and village level bodies. In the early days, when this move was introduced, there was considerable skepticism. How will women cope? Are they equipped to be leaders? Will this mean any real change or merely mean that the men will take a back seat and use women as a front to implement what they want? While all these problems still remain in a greater or lesser degree, what is also true is that more and more women have shown that once they have power, they are able to use it to the benefit of society in general and women in particular.